Today I'm going to be walking you through exactly how much Gabe and I earned in tech sales, basically over when we first met, we then transitioned to tech sales, and where we are today. Now, I'm doing this because my most favorite videos I love watching on YouTube is people breaking down their finances, because I think that's the best way to learn from other people. You also relate to other people's background stories, and it feels like it's really achievable for yourself as well. So I have no intentions of keeping anything hidden, and of course when I walk through a lot of these numbers, I'm not someone that has pretty much structured a lot of this core today that I'm going to walk you through. So it really is just like giving you guys an overview of everything and how we've gone about investing, saving, our expenses, and everything around all that. What I'm going to start with is really when Gabe and I first met, we were $50,000 in total debt together. So that was things just like around personal debt that we, had bought stuff with, HEX debt, whatever the case was, right? Or even like not owning a car outright. And so when we first met, I was not in tech sales. Gabe was in tech sales the first year that we were sort of together. So how I originally found out about tech sales was obviously more so through Gabe, but we basically both left our old jobs to get into tech sales because we wanted to earn more money. Now, what is important to highlight about mine and Gabe's financial situation from the moment we had met, and really thank you to Gabe for all this, she has made us stay on track because she's put all these formulas and Excel documents together. Now, when we both came together as a couple, I was actually really good at savings already. Like I probably had about, 50 to 100K in like savings, or actually probably more around $50,000 in savings. And so Gabe was sort of the one in debt. However, I wasn't tracking it like we do today because of Gabe. She's really good at Excel and everything. Now we have the first 2 to 3 years, we had a Excel document, which is like our life plan. It has all our expenses and income on it. And then we've obviously enhanced what that looks like every couple years because things change. We need to calculate different things and the formulas get more complicated. And then the past 3 years, we've had another updated version because we have 3 properties now. And so like putting that into it is important, obviously how much the mortgage is and things like that. When we first started, I think the big punchline here is that on average, since me and Gabe have started working in tech sales, our average income over the past 6 years, now I say 6, we've been together like 8 years, but I'm just going off 6 years right now because that is when we like officially started tracking things a little bit better. And when I was like officially in tech sales that first year, that 7th year, obviously there was like an overlap there and how much data I have to be able to go off. So in total, Gabe and I have earned $3.7 million in tech sales. And frankly, that will be like more if you include like our equity and stocks that we currently have. But this is like total reported earnings after our, financial year tax income situations. We've earned $3.7 million today. Now, on average, that's $616,000 a year that we have earned. So I started in tech when I was around 22 years old, and Gabe started when she was in about 25, 26 years old. So from there, obviously, the first year together, we didn't earn $616,000. But I thought for the sake of walking through the breakdown of our financials, to instead of going super deep on each year, I would more so talk about averages of how we've lived our life. So in total, $616,000 we've earned every single year. Now we live in Australia, which is obviously one of the highest income tax places you can live. So you can assume that we basically, 50% of that was going to tax, not every year, but basically because we're on always the highest income bracket, basically after like my second year in tech sales, and Gabe was there pretty much straight away. Now, always when we're working with double, triple community members too, I think when they come into the program, a lot of it is obviously maximizing their income, but they may, like a lot of the conversations we actually want to have during that process when they're joining is very much of like, how do they achieve financial freedom, or how can they get ahead using tech sales as a leverage? Now, tech sales is one of the most high lucrative careers that you can get into. And we are a testimonial of like ourselves just going really hard for 7 years and sacrificing certain things to be able to get to where we are today. So I would typically say me and Gabe were like almost like Aussie battlers growing up. We didn't come from wealth or anything like that. So I really had to go and like learn. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. Gabe does a lot of reading. The video today is I'm going to break down sort of our current expenses. Now, consistently, me and Gabe since meeting, we have had a savings rate of at least 50% every single year. So that means no matter how much we earned that year, we basically made our life. So let's say we made 200K that year, we would make sure our expenses were under a certain amount. So we had a 50% savings rate. So first and foremost, that is one consistent thing we have done over the past 6 to 7 years is always have a 50% savings rate, even when we increased our income. So with all that, we've gone from 50K in debt together to now we have a 1.92 net worth as well. So every single year we've tracked our net worth that I can break down as well. And of course that can change depending on the certain things that you add. Like, do you add in like your total car and things like that? So I'll walk down like our assets that we include to overarchingly get our net worth as well. So I think a really interesting insight for you all is that, let's say on average, Gabe and I have earned $616,000 every single year since being in tech sales. On average, over the past sort of 6 to 7 years, we have spent $32,500 a year on rent. We, on average, have spent $10,000 a year on our car. And these are two things that have been instrumental in how Gabe and I got ahead in life. Now, we sacrificed living in studios, 1-bedroom apartments. We now are living we went and rented like a place that was, I think it was like $5 to $6 grand a month. So we like ended up blowing that out when we're living in North Sydney. But then now we've moved to the Central Coast and now we're living back in a studio, purely based on being able to save and invest more money. So we have not had lifestyle creep. I think me and Gabe, in terms of our values, we're the furthest things away of needing to keep up with the Joneses. Every night we sit in bed and say, what was your favorite thing about today? And like 90% of the time, we will either say it was the gym or walking road together around the park or whatever. And so those two things are like almost $0. And we strongly believe in like a minimal lifestyle. We've just always lived that way. And I think when you sort of come from like not wealth or etc., you sort of don't need that as well. Now, we do typically always have like a bit of a blowout on something that we have spent that is like a big spending thing each year. Like last year or the year before was like, you know, we got like a 20 to 25 grand sauna or something like that. So if you sort of look at our expenses in a line item fashion, it's never hugely on like clothes or, I don't know, objects. It's more of like reinvesting back into our health, learning, etc. Please don't overspend on rent if you need to move places. One thing that was obviously valuable to us moving to the Central Coast is we had 100% remote roles. So we did that on purpose because we knew we didn't have to travel into the city every single day as well. And even with our car, we sold, when we were living in the city or North Sydney, we actually ended up selling our car we didn't have a car for 2 years because we just walked places and we just got public transport to save money on like insurance and regos and things like that. So we made a conscious decision to even sacrifice that period of our time. Though at that time we were paying the highest rent, we then were barely spending any money on public transport and the car. So we've always balanced it out. Every single year we sort of know where we're going to be living or what the big bucket list items are that year. And we budget for like holidays and things like that. Now, since me and Gabe have also been together, we've also only ever had one car. So, you know, it's never actually been a challenge for us. We do a lot of things together, go to the gym together, and all those sorts of things. But if it is, like, Gabe will obviously take the car and I don't really need it that day. Obviously, we don't have children, so I can only imagine when, you know, you have kids, you definitely need 2 cars. But that is something me and Gabe did consciously early on in our relationship as well. So again, they're the averages we've spent on rent and cars. Now, utilities, we spend about $11,000 a year on like water, electricity, etc. We then spend about $15,000 a year in our health bucket, which are things like massages and gyms and whatever else. I kind of forget what we put exactly in that, but it's really like gym and massage, etc. And then we have spending. So over the past 6 to 7 years, on average, like to be honest, last year, the financial year, we do our life plans off financial year. So like 12 months ago, I think that was our biggest year of spending. which was like 120K. I don't know like what those things were exactly to. I actually could go back and look as well, so I can do that. But on average, over the past 6 to 7 years, we have spent $60,000 a year on like, this would all go into like clothes, holidays, like the sauna, doing triathlons, all that stuff has gone into that. So about 60K a year. So if you can think about it, on average, over the past 6 to 7 years, we have earned $616,000 a year. Then after all those expenses, we are left with around $457,000. And then obviously we pay tax. So that's another expense as well. But again, we have always consistently hit that 50% savings rate. Now, what I think is interesting, if you and your partner or yourself don't have a life plan and have your tracking your finances, I honestly don't know how you get ahead in life. Like, you got to track data to be able to get ahead in life. And that's certainly what Gabe and I have done. So if I look at a more realistic picture at the moment as well, because things have obviously changed, so we've brought in a mortgage as well over the past 3 years. However, obviously the mortgage is an expense, but I also look at that as like an investment, and that's just like how I deal with it in my head as well. But we have bought basically our first property together after a couple years of working in tech sales. So we now have a property portfolio of over $3.5 million. And here's a bit of a breakdown of what that looks like. So the most important thing we did is like get out of debt. And then we went through like a couple years of actually investing purely in like ETFs. And then we realized like in Australia specifically, I know in America and like other states maybe don't have as much incentives, but we have obviously negative gearing and a lot of incentives around buying property in Australia. And logically, we thought, if you have $1 million in property and you make 10% of that over on average a year, that's 100K right there, right? Or you have $100,000 in stocks, that's only, $10,000. And the increase of compounding of property grows much faster in the terms of the total assets that you have. So increase our income was like number one thing, obviously, to continuously buy more property. We aligned on goals. We've also gone through a financial advisor. We've gone through 2 financial advisors in our partnership together. One, we had a rocky start with the first one, and then we actually went with Pivot Wealth for the second one, and that was a great outcome in understanding really how to leverage mine and Gabe's income, especially because we have stocks and equity inside our tech companies as well. Where to invest that, how to go about doing things like around ESPP inside these tech companies as well, which is really where you can buy like stocks at a 15% discount before tax, and then you can get those, and then like, do we sell them, do we not sell them, and managing all that. And really, since the beginning, we've always treated our portfolio like a business. We truly check this monthly, like I'm always inputting our expenses monthly. We have regular conversations, and especially like quarterly, we would have a pretty deep conversation of understanding where our expenses are, where we need to tidy things up as well. One thing I forgot to mention quickly, because I skipped past it because I was going to save it for you all, is on average, our food expenses, literally our food expenses are the most, we spend more money on average, basically, over the past 7 years on food than we do on rent. What's that saying? Like, I don't even know what the girl version of is. I'm a man, I'm not afraid to say it or whatever. Like, we actually spend so much money on food, and it's horrifying because like typically in tech, we've also had like credit cards taking people out. Like, we eat a lot if we're on the business card for work and travel, but we spend a lot of money on food. I think, talk about us being minimalist. One thing we do like to do though a lot is like eat out as well. So that is just something we really enjoy. We always get coffees out. We've never been shy on like trying to hold back from that. That's something we really enjoy together. I would love us to tidy that up, and I say that because like every single month I say like, can we try? It just somehow always ends up being like, between like 3 to 4K a month on food, which it is what it is, and I'm sick of trying to make that tidier, so I'm just going to make more money to eat, Basically, we do also buy always quality food, but when we do go out to restaurants, like Gabe and I can eat a lot. Like, we don't even get 2 meals because we like see the whole, menu, and we like want to order everything as well. So that is what it is. In terms of our property one, we bought our first property at Newcastle, which was a apartment. And so we purchased that in September of 2023 for $690,000 on an 85% LVR. We originally saved $130,000 to acquire basically this property. Now, within the first 3 months of purchasing this property, we grew 10% on that. And so we were able to leverage that $75,000 that we got from equity, and we basically pulled that out and we're able to purchase our second property. What I don't regret it, and I do regret it, is that we should have bought a larger size property out of the gates. However, it was my first property. I was a bit nervous. In terms of investing styles, Gabe's very high risk, I'm very low risk. And so we settled on this price, but I could already see after buying the first one, we were so comfortable with our incomes, and we probably should have bought something a little more like expensive straight out of the gate. However, you only get more and more confident as you go through your investing journey as well. Now with that, we had a bit more cash already from buying the first property that we had saved up, and then that equity. And then we essentially went and bought property 2. So basically within that first 2 years of our property in Nesca, it was $690K, and it's already valued at around $870,000 to date. So over sort of like the past 2 years, we've already had 170K growth on that. All our property investing that we have done, we've done that through Jack Henderson, the Henderson Group, and they really built out our strategy, what that looks like over like a 20 to 30 year horizon. And we very much go after properties with high capital, and maybe they're negatively geared in terms of rent. And so we're happy to pay out of pocket as long as the property keeps continuously growing, which it absolutely has. And in terms of our net portfolio and net worth at sort of the end of the year, we always come out like cash positive if you look at it as a holistic year in terms of the growth of the asset minus expenses. That sort of evens out that we are net positive as well. Now with that, we then purchased our second property very quickly. So our first one was in September of 2023, and then in March of 2024, so only about like 6 months later, we purchased property 2. And so we purchased that one at $845,000. And so to acquire that second property, we needed $150,000. So again, we used $75,000 of that equity straight out of the gate, and then we had that cash again to buy property 2. Now, what the whole strategic plan with buying the second property was to also buy an asset that we could build a granny flat on it straight away. What we did, we built a granny flat on that for around $300,000. And property 2 now is a strong performer, and rents are over $1,400 per week, which is around $5,600 per month. So property 2 was last valued at $1.25 million, resulting in 105K growth in 12 months. So our new property portfolio from basically September of 2023, our starting portfolio of 690K, by then basically July of 2024, we had a net portfolio value of $2.1 million. Now, basically because once we purchased property 2 around that 845K, we built the granny flat on it. That took a couple months obviously to go through that. Something I always like to do is like wait 6 months to buy the next property, just so I'm subconsciously sleep at night factor to be able to manage the expenses of that. We then were ready to buy property 3. And the whole entire goal for me and Gabe was, once we sort of gone through pivot, financial advice and things like that, was to acquire as many properties as possible in such a short frame. Because we also knew banks loan you money obviously on high income as well. We could have really like maxed out and done a lot more, but this was personally my sleep at night factor as well. So we then bought property 3 in Brisbane, and so we bought that in September of 2025. So that was again only coming up to about 9 months ago. So today, we're in June of 2026. Now we acquired that for $1.75 million at an 80% LVR, and we spent $280,000 to acquire that cost. And then right now we are in the middle of building granny flat on the third property. So at the moment we have about $1,300 per week of rent, which is about $6,500 per month with the granny flat included. So again, we had last month, if I look at sort of our total out-of-pocket costs for all 3 properties, was $4,473,000 with, obviously, we pay a mortgage, and then there's other expenses like strata for the apartment and just other fees for the team to be able to manage that. but we had a pretty good month. The second property that we actually had, it was really exciting to see. We didn't have any expenses on that. Nothing sort of went, in quote, wrong we needed to fix. And we actually had a positively geared property, which is like so freaking mind-blowing for me to think. So we built the granny flats on it, and obviously we had to leverage more to be able to invest more on the property with the granny flat. But we had a month last month which was already basically positively geared, and we expect that to be very soon coming for the third property that we have in Brizzy with the granny flat as well. Now, in total though, we do have expenses that pop up, and that's not always the case every single month. But on average, you can think we are spending anywhere from $70,000 to $80,000 of out-of-pocket expenses per year on our property. But again, if that has a very good, on average, like in Australia, if we have 10% growth year on year, we are very well on track to have a significant portfolio in the coming years. And it's really cool to have seen basically from, even when we acquired the property in Brizzy, we then had a total portfolio of $3.2 million. But even since September of 2025 to where we are right now in June of 2026, we haven't had a recent revaluation until, we're not going to get that done until the granny flat's completed on property 3. But last time we had that checked, which was around in February this year, we were at just over 3.5 million property portfolio. So it's insane. It was like the first experience for me when I had that $75,000 pulled out of property 1 of equity, to basically see us, for me, to have that unlock of compounding growth was absolutely insane to see. And because of negatively gearing last year when we were both in our roles, typically we've always had to pay more at tax time because we haven't paid enough or whatever. Last year we actually got like 20K back, which was really cool to offset that. I know there's lots of changes in the Australian government at the moment as well. However, why we did the granny flat builds on top of these 2 properties as well, we always had a long-term vision of being able to step out of tech sales roles as well. And so that would offset the actual out-of-pocket expenses every single month as well. So we have strategically done that over the past 7 years. Like, all this has been a plan, it's all coming to fruition. But when you have a set plan and chip away at it every single year, it can really pay off. So I will basically give on Instagram a fully updated portfolio breakdown of the properties once we get that valuation back for us. But really, investing in great buyers agents is worth it in my opinion. Like, fun fact, I have not visited any of our properties. Like, I've not seen any of our properties in person before, and they all run smoothly. And I think it's worth, like, for me, it was the first big investment I did in terms of paying for a buyer's agent, and the return on that has been significant. And for me personally, like, the time savings is amazing. Now, leveraging is unmatched for building wealth. Like, where else can you put 100K into an asset that can be worth, 7 to 10 mil in the long run? Like, property is the way to go there. But overall, you need to know your numbers and have the sleep at night factor. Now, of course, me and Gabe have essentially increased our income every single year since being in tech sales. So we have made big jumps every single year because we've gotten better at sales as well. And then we've taken on more responsibilities in those companies to get better as well. So go aggressive in that 5 to 7 years and just do everything you can. Like, me and Gabe were off social media for 4 years together during really the start when we got into tech sales, so we had no distractions as well. Now, what I thought would be interesting is really like a breakdown of a bit of our household income. So I'll put up like a little screenshot here or something, but really every single year we've gone like 178K together, 155K, we sort of went backwards, and 235K, 383K, 741K, 872K, etc. Now, our net worth over time, which is like the most interesting part to all this, before I get into the net worth over time, I think what's important to highlight here is, so our total assets today, so I've given you a breakdown of 616K is the average income we've earned in terms of like just cash, I guess, from like the financial reports of what we've made as well. But then in terms of like how we get to our net worth and how we calculate that, that's obviously, we have superannuation. So in Australia, this is like our retirement fund. In America, it's like your 401k fund. And so our total assets are $4.8 million. And this again was about 2 months ago. So I am going off a bit of old numbers. So it'd actually be a little bit more than this at the moment. However, total assets, 4.8 million. Superannuation between me and Gabe, we have $446,000 together. We have since obviously left our full-time employee roles, and so we have stopped investing in superannuation for the time being. We just don't see it being necessary. It's actually quite a lot in there compared to others anyways, and we've really maximized that throughout the years. We've always capped out every single year. Like, usually employees need to put 10 to 15% of whatever you earn in Australia towards that. But we've also, I think 25k or 30k, I can't remember the exact numbers, is like what you can max out each year. And we always did that because it's like pre-tax. Now, in total stocks at the moment, we have, so we invest in bonds every single month. We have just had an automation that goes there. We have ETFs that we invest into, and then we have stocks, part of our current companies as well. And the total valuation of that all combined is $612,000. We then have a property value, so it will be $5 very soon. And I think I really believe once we get the revals done in a couple months' time, this will be more, but $3.57 million. We currently have cash in the bank at the moment, 200k, and our liabilities, which is really just our whole mortgage at the moment, is $2.9 million. So Gabe and I have our car paid off, we have no HEX or any sort of in quote bad debt, and that brings our net worth out to $1.92 million today. Well, it's 2 months ago really these numbers were, but say I'm recording this June of 2026, I'll give an updated version in sort of a couple months time. And the whole reason I'm doing this today is actually a bit of a snapshot for myself, but we've done a chapter of this life being in tech sales and going through this journey, and we're now jumping into our own business. And so I'm very excited to look back on this in a year, 2 years, 3 years time to really see what it does for us in that period of time. Now, what is important, I guess, for even people listening and tuning in to, we've now built Double Triple. We are very, a lot of, I guess, these gurus, or I don't know, you leave your job, I guess, to what I see in terms of marketing, it's earn 10k a month or something like that. And not to sound cocky or anything like that, but I am very comfortable. Me and Gabe have had plenty of months where we've earned over $100,000 a month, and we expect very big things from obviously leaving this current role. So why we've done this is we are setting Double Triple to, be a easily $1 million business by the end of 2026. But for us, this is really around being the #1 tech sales advisory firm in the world. And we believe that this is going to take us to really that next level as well. And I think for myself, just I'm a metrics person, I'm a forward thinker. I really believe net worth and all this stuff, there is just a certain number that we'll get to. And I have a number in mind for myself that once I've hit that number, I guess I could take the foot off the gas. But it's for me, just increasing income, it just feels like a big fun game for me. I don't really get interested in doing I don't know, just chill activities. This is fun for me, and I feel it pushes me, it keeps me engaged in terms of life, gives me a purpose and everything that we're doing. But most importantly, this video is really to showcase if you and your partner or you yourself can go all in together, be aligned on your goals, and really use tech sales as a vehicle to change your life. This is the whole reason we're building Double Triple, because it's very straightforward formula if you go all in and see other people doing it as well. Now, with all of that, I guess how I want to round this video out as well is really around what we did each year to really make this happen. And so when me and Gabe met each other in 2018, once we met, obviously we had the debt and we had to really focus on around getting the personal loan to $0. And what we did really from there is realize we, both need to go hard in tech sales. We made the sacrifice to live in that studio. It was one studio in North Sydney. I think at the time it was $420 a week to live in it. We definitely, the biggest thing in Lifestyle Create we did was go from basically a $620 one bedroom apartment to a week to a $1,350 house in North Sydney. I don't regret that. We were so ready to do that, and we had the money to, it was still fine. We were still hitting the 50% savings rate. But after about 2 years, we were sick of paying $60,000 a year on rent, and we made a decision to move, especially when we were living in North Sydney and we had remote roles, and it just didn't make sense too much as well. In 2021, we obviously continued. We just went all in on our roles to get promoted as well. And we just spent the whole year learning to invest, figuring out, was it stocks, was it property for us, like what was the target for us. And then really 2023, buying our first property was when we started to really make the jumps in terms of net worth, because of the increase in the value of the properties as well. But we are not stopping. We love, the lessons around increasing income, but most importantly, always live well below your means and choosing a high income skill. I believe before passion. Not everyone will agree with this, but I strongly believe my mentality in life was always like, do whatever you can in your 20s and 30s to then live a joyful life in your 40s and 50s. I wouldn't want to do it the other way around. Like, I fundamentally don't understand people. I do understand. I get it. Like, I just don't resonate with like blowing all your money in your 20s and 30s on big trips to whatever, holidays and whatever, buying properties. Like, how many people drive around with like these utes and like cars that they have so much debt on? Just like does not fundamentally make sense in my head. But we really made sure that we got into a career that was going to have headwinds behind it as well. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in a sales role or whatever industry you're in. Like, if you are capped, you're capped and you're just wasting time there. So get into a role that can have uncapped commission earnings, and like, even, if you're a customer success person, or if you're like an implementation person and you're not in a sales role, but you're in tech sales and you can get equity and shares in the company, you're still going to be better off if they IPO or get acquired or whatever the case is. And then just like set really clear annual saving goals, investment targets. Like, you need to set, me and Gabe, we have a big 12-month calendar every single year in our bedroom that we stare at every single night and chat through. And we have a big number that's like our savings goal every single year. And like, we do everything we possibly can to hit that number. And typically we end up like hitting it early. And then it's like, then we can spend a little bit more money on like holidays or whatever we want, because we've like rewarded ourselves and hit what we wanted to. So that was like a really big thing me and Gabe did every single year, and really support each other through the busy seasons. I think, me and Gabe had to learn very early on as well around our risk profiles, which is something that you need to learn as well. And being like open, this is like how we treat this. It's like very much a second business. Like, your income, your earnings, your investments is a second business that you have to run, and you have to make sure that you're staying on track to make sure that the investments are in the right place, you're doing the right thing, and it comes with all the legalities around making sure, you're on the right track in terms of what you're investing in as well. So hopefully that was helpful in terms of how we've gone about that, in terms of really the big jumps for myself and Gabe in tech sales, obviously going from myself and SDR and then consistently getting promoted as like the AE track and closing bigger deals. I've had many months where I've personally myself just made $100,000 in tech sales by just closing a deal. At the company I was at, we got around 20% based on the net new logo that we would close. And if it was like a multi-year contract, it'd be like 21%, 22%, 23%. And then Gabe, for the folks that even covered a double, triple, I think a lot of people that are maybe doing or other programs or whatever, it's very much around like the entry track and just to SDR, BDRs. Very much we have people already working in tech that are like a niche tier 5 company, and they're really looking to get to a tier 1 company. Gabe's always had leadership roles in tech, so she's had 30 odd people roll up to her. And so Gabe, a fun fact for everyone as well, Gabe's always made more money than me every single year. Some years we've gotten close, but also from when Gabe got in, she was really like a go-to-market or a leader in terms of the segment that she was working in tech. So for the folks that are maybe a bit older in age or just have a lot of experience, you don't need to start as an SDR role, come in as an account executive. There's also so many different roles that you can get into, like account manager or a specialist type AE role as well. So many different other segments in terms of tech you can get into. And I think what's really exciting when you get into the space of tech, you start to realize like part of there's roles as like business value consulting teams, there's the enablement teams, there's customer success, implementation, and you can get into all these other roles once you actually get into the company as well. However, if you do want to make the most money in tech sales, I highly recommend an account executive. The individual contributor is always going to make the most money, probably long term. Hopefully this was useful. It was very broad in terms of, I guess, our expenses and things like that. Happy to do more of a breakdown video for you if you're interested in doing so. More than happy to break that down in more detail. But hopefully that gives you a bit of a overview journey of where we are currently today, June 2026, from when we first met. I know on Instagram it can be very short snapshots, but that gives you a realistic picture into how I've gone about investing over the past 7 years. If you are interested in getting into tech sales and really going through this whole playbook myself and Gabe have done, please click the link in the captions below. More than happy to have a conversation with you to figure and map all this out as well.